Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today, we're going deep on this pretty interesting artist, Bob Camblin. You might not know the name off the top of your head, but um, his work is making some serious waves, high prices at auctions, but he himself is kind of a bit of an enigma.
Yeah, he's really is. It's interesting, isn't it, Camblin? He's got a lot of work out there, globally even, but it's not often you see it. And when you do, well, collectors, they go crazy for it. So it makes you wonder what makes his work so valuable when, he's not exactly a household name.
That's what we're here to figure out today.
Oh.
So I've got a ton of stuff here, biographies, critical analyses, even a YouTube video breaking down one of his most interesting pieces. You ready to get into it?
Absolutely, yeah. Let's unlock this mystery.
All right. So let's see. Starting with what we know about his early life, born in Oklahoma in 1928, studied at the Kansas City Art Institute, then bam, gets himself a Fulbright to Italy. Classic story of an American artist finding inspiration abroad, right?
It does seem to follow that, that familiar path. But what I find interesting is that he didn't just, settle into academia after Europe. Nope. He takes off, traveling and painting, funding it all by selling his work, like a true nomad.
So he wasn't just taking in those European influences. He was really immersing himself in all sorts of cultures, all sorts of landscapes. I mean, Italy, France, Ireland, Mexico, the South Pacific even. Pretty adventurous, especially back then in the 70s and 80s. Do you think that had anything to do with shaping how he saw, like, his artistic vision?
Well, it's hard to say for sure, but it definitely says something about, like, a restless spirit, always searching for something new, new experiences, new perspectives, and almost like he was absorbing the essence of all those places and
Uh,
channeling it into his art.
I can see that, yeah. It's like
Oopsie.
like he's weaving this visual tapestry, pulling threads from all these different cultures and landscapes. So, okay, how would you describe his style? Where does he fit in with everything else that was happening in art at the time?
Well, his early work, you could say it lines up with abstract expressionism, which was, big in the mid 20th century. But Camblin, he didn't just stick with one style. He evolved, always experimenting, always pushing the boundary.
Right, and that brings us to his signature style, the thing that really sets him apart. What was it called?
Muchas Volantes. He developed it with another artist, Nancy Giordano.
Okay, so I'm picturing, like, dots and dashes, but what's the overall effect? What's he doing with those dots and dashes?
Imagine you're looking at a Camblin piece and you see these shapes, right? And as your eyes move, they shift, they change, some even disappear. The way he places the dots and dashes, it's so meticulous, it creates these like optical illusions, kind of messing with how you see things, like Escher maybe or Dali, but maybe a bit more subtle, almost hypnotic.
So it's not just like a visual trick, there's something more happening, right?
Exactly. It's more than just aesthetics with Muchas Volantes. He wants you, the viewer, to be part of figuring out what it means. You're not just looking, you're engaging with the art, working out the illusions, and ultimately deciding what it means to you.
I'm already hooked, and we're just getting started. In all the stuff we have, one piece really stood out. Proposal for a large collaborative painting. Can we dive into that one?
Oh, absolutely. It's a fantastic piece because it gives you a peek into both, how Camblin worked and also his overall philosophy of art.
From what I read, it's like it's this hybrid thing, right? Part finished painting, part sketchbook page with notes and stuff. And there's a skull right in the center, but not in like a creepy way. What do you make of that?
I see it as a symbol, maybe representing like how art lasts, or even time passing.
Hmm. And then there's this like window inside the skull, almost
Yeah.
as like a view into another dimension. Like he's inviting us to see the world through his eyes.
And don't forget all those handwritten notes all over it. That adds another layer, makes it feel really personal, like we're getting to see inside his head.
Yeah, yeah, like we're backstage seeing the artist at work.
And that's where it connects to conceptual art.
Okay, break that down for me. What's conceptual art in this context?
Well, for Camblin, it's about emphasizing the idea behind the art just as much as the final piece itself. Proposal for a large collaborative painting, it's not just visually interesting. It's saying something about the creative process, about collaborating, about, being okay with imperfection.
In that YouTube video we have, the narrator says something interesting. They say, the unfinished quality reflects an openness to imperfection. And that really hit me because it seems like that's a theme that keeps coming up with Camblin.
It does, doesn't it? This idea of embracing the process, the journey, instead of getting hung up on a perfect outcome. And there's something really freeing about that, don't you think?
Totally. It makes you rethink what finished art even means.
Yeah.
Like, what is the process, how the work evolves, is just as important as what you end up with.
Exactly. And then you've got the collaborative part of the title. That suggests he saw this piece as like a starting point, something for others to contribute to, either literally adding to the canvas or just engaging with the idea.
So it's not just about him, the artist, but about this shared creative experience, this back and forth between artist and viewer. There's so much to unpack here. We're just getting started, but I feel like, thanks to Bob Camblin, we're already seeing art in a whole new light.
Oh, absolutely. And as we go deeper, I think you'll find that his work brings up even more interesting questions, about how we see things, how we work together, even the nature of art itself.
So we've talked about Camblin's crazy adventurous life, his unique style, Musha Volantes, and that fascinating piece, Proposal for a Large Collaborative Painting.
Mm.
It feels like there's this a connection between all of it, some kind of theme that keeps popping up.
You're definitely onto something there. There are a few themes, actually, that, run through all his work. We talked about collaborating and how important the process is to him, but maybe the strongest one is impermanence.
You mean like going back to that skull in the proposal piece?
Exactly. He doesn't paint it in like a scary way, but more as a symbol of how temporary life is, and art too, when you think about it. Camblin, he was always on the move. His style was always changing, always evolving. And this piece, with being unfinished, it seems to reflect that.
I see what you mean. It's like he's challenging this whole idea of a finished artwork, something that's static. Instead, he's embracing change, going with the flow, finding the beauty in things beyond unfinished.
And by doing that, he's kind of asking us to rethink how we see art, how we see life even. Think about it. How often do we get so caught up in trying to be perfect, trying to get to that like polished final product that we forget to just enjoy the process, the journey?
It's so true. We're always chasing the end goal, the perfect Instagram post, the perfect presentation. Camblin's work is like a reminder to slow down, to appreciate those messy, imperfect moments along the way.
And what's really interesting is that, this whole idea of impermanence, it's not just in the themes of his work, it's in the technique too.
Yeah.
Remember Musha's Volantes? Those optical illusions he creates with dots and dashes, they're not fixed. They change depending on how you look at them and even the light.
So, like, the art itself is constantly changing, just like the impermanence it's showing. It's like the act of seeing becomes a kind of performance, a collaboration between the artist, the viewer, and even the light.
Exactly. Let me give you an example. One technique he uses is, he creates a sense of depth and movement by arranging the dots in a specific way. He puts darker dots closer together and lighter dots farther apart. It makes it look like the space is going back, receding.
Like those Magi Eye pictures where you have to stare and then suddenly, bam, a 3D image pops out.
Yeah, it's a similar idea. But unlike a magic eye, the illusions in Camblin's work are more fluid. They depend more on the viewer, actually, like engaging with the piece.
It's like he's asking us to join him in this visual dance.
Yeah.
We're not just looking at dots on a canvas. We're part of this dynamic back and forth between how we see things and how we interpret them.
And this interactive quality, this invitation to participate, it's another key element of Camblin's work. It goes back to that collaborative spirit we talked about, the idea that art isn't a solo act, it's a conversation.
Right. We, the viewers, we become like co-creators of the experience. We bring our own ways of seeing things, our own interpretations to the canvas. Every time you look at it, it's different. Just like every moment in life is fleeting and you can't get it back.
It's a great reminder that art, just like life, is this constantly moving process, this back and forth between creation and perception. And I think that's part of what makes Camblin's work so captivating. He doesn't give you easy answers or fixed meanings. He challenges you to engage, to question, to see the world with fresh eyes.
Which brings us back to that question we started with. Why is Camblin's work so valuable, even though, not everyone knows his name? We've talked about his innovative techniques, his themes that make you think, and his belief in collaborating. Does that explain why people are so drawn to his work? Or is there more to it?
I think it's a mix of things. The fact that you don't see his work often, the mystery surrounding him, and the fact that he can't be put into any one category, that all adds to his appeal. But in the end, I think it's the power of the art itself, that really grabs collectors.
So it's not just hype or market trends. There's something real there, something that resonates with people when they see his art.
Exactly. Camblin's art speaks to something deep inside us, something more than just surface level. It makes us think about big questions, about how we see things, about time, about what's real. And maybe in a world that often feels so chaotic and uncertain, his art gives us a sense of grounding, a reminder that we can find beauty and meaning in the most unexpected places.
It's interesting. There's this parallel between Camblin's nomadic life and his artistic philosophy, right?
Yeah.
He was always looking for new horizons, new ways of seeing things, never settling down. And his art, it reflects that same spirit of exploration, that openness.
You've got a good point there. It's almost like his life and his art are completely intertwined. He lived his philosophy, embracing impermanence and the unknown, and his art is proof of that.
It's like a reminder that we don't have to choose between like structure and exploration, between tradition and innovation. We can have both, just like Camblin did, and create something truly unique and meaningful. Okay, so we covered a lot about Camblin, his life, his artwork, his whole philosophy. We've talked about his techniques, the themes he explored, how his art makes the viewer think, all that. But for someone who's maybe never seen his work before, what would you say? How should they approach it?
Hmm. I'd say just go in with an open mind. Don't try to overthink it or put it into some neat category. Camblin's art, it's about the experience, the feeling. Just let it like wash over you.
It's like when you hear a song that really gets to you, right? You don't need to analyze every note to feel its power. You just feel it.
Yeah, exactly. Just let yourself get pulled into that visual dance of his muchas volantes. Play with those optical illusions. See how those shapes, they shift, they change just by moving your head even.
Yeah.
Get lost in that interplay of light and shadow and those perfectly placed dots and dashes.
And even if it doesn't all click right away, that's right. Be okay with the mystery, with things not being totally clear. That's part of what makes his work so cool. Remember, he was all about breaking the rules, pushing the boundaries.
He wanted you to think, to question things, to see the world in a different way. And sometimes the art that has the most impact is the art that leaves us with more questions than answers.
So where can someone actually find Camblin's work? It sounds like it's pretty hard to come by.
It is, yeah. He never really cared about being famous or rich, so his pieces are kind of scattered around, not in many museums or big galleries. You might find one in a small gallery somewhere or maybe in someone's private collection. You can find some pictures online, but honestly, to really experience it, you gotta see it in person.
Sounds like finding his art is an adventure in itself.
It is, and that makes sense, doesn't it? Considering how Camblin was always traveling, always exploring, the search for his art, it becomes its own journey.
It feels like we've only just dipped our toes into Bob Camblin's world. Like there's so much more to discover, so much more to explore.
Oh, definitely. And that's part of what makes him so fascinating. He's an artist who, even though he's gone, he keeps challenging us, keeps inspiring us.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Bob Camblin, I guess we're back to where we started. Remember how we were wondering why his art is so valuable, when not a lot of people even know his name?
And I think the answer is in everything we've talked about today. His unique technique, his themes that make you stop and think, his belief in collaboration, his acceptance of impermanence, his one-of-a-kind life story, it all comes together to create art that really sticks with you.
It's art that doesn't just hang on a wall, It sparks conversation, it makes you question things, it makes you want to join in this creative dance.
And maybe, most importantly, it reminds us that beauty and meaning can be found anywhere, even in the least likely places, if we just open our eyes to it.
So to everyone listening, if you're curious about what you've heard today, I encourage you, go find Camblin's work. Embrace the challenge. Go on that hunt. You might just find your own connection to this mysterious, brilliant artist.
And if you do, remember that question we talked about earlier, if you could collaborate with the unknown, what would you create?
Let that question guide you. Let it spark your own creative journey. Until next time, keep exploring, keep creating, and keep diving deep.